Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking time and making this a priority in your day today. We really appreciate that. We know that the real estate that resides between your ears is of extreme value, and you giving us some time to share with you is very much appreciated. As you may know, the topic today, or the title of our symposium, is Evolving for the Future, Technology Enabled and Value Driven. The operative word is evolving. The world is evolving very rapidly. As we know, our industry is being impacted and innovations are creating convergence. A lot of the benefits and the various services that we deliver are converging around a center. That center, it has a gravitational force that's largely driven by the needs of the 2024 workforce, which is creating a really strong pull towards the center. And what's happening is that these things at the edges are slowly getting drawn together, but you know how it works, it happens slowly and then all together very quickly all at once. And so that convergence is quite disruptive to both advisors and employers, and certainly for plan members, so not just both, but to all the stakeholders in our industry. It can be quite disruptive and disconcerting to many as well. I participated in a symposium recently with the Canadian Pension Benefits Institute and asked the question, and it was quite remarkable that the number of people in the crowd who were willing to acknowledge that they feel overwhelmed by the amount of convergence going on in our industry and how to navigate effective HR management and, for that matter, advisory services to the employment world. At IDC Win Workplace Solutions, we are a full service group MGA, and we're committed to supporting advisors and your clients in navigating and finding the signals in the noise of all of this convergence. Today, we have a terrific lineup of thought leaders who'll be presenting. We hope that you find some of the information compelling, certainly exciting, and helpful. And as we move forward, a lot of innovation is not necessarily just the technology. It's around language, it's around consulting, finding the right ways to speak to our customers about a lot of the change that's going on. That's really where it starts. It removes a lot of the angst, is being able to have a solid conversation with customers about what their needs are and what kinds of solutions are actually becoming available to serve those needs. We're here to support. I hope that today will help to define some of the language for you, some of the ideas for you, may provide you with opportunities to differentiate yourselves as advisors in the marketplace. And we are certainly here. We have business development people now across the country, and we're here to support you as you seek to catch up or hone your consulting capabilities for 2024 and going forward. You know, as I said at the outset here, convergence is happening around us. And as my good friend Jonathan Weistab will say, you know, innovation in and of itself is well, that's cool. It's fun. But we're not here really just to have the fun. The reality is it's got to get practical. We've got to understand the practicality of it. I think that a large part of what we do as an MGA is try to explore the convergence that is being driven by innovation. We try to find ways to access the innovation to make it practical for you. Technology is giving us new tools that are enhancing the administration, delivery, communication, and management of benefit plans. It's changing everything as we know it. In fact, there's one exceptionally good example of convergence here today. I don't want to, not minimizing anyone else's presentation they're going to be making, but Joe is representing GreenShield and GreenShield Health. And if anybody knows what's coming with GreenShield Plus, again, I was recently on at the CPPI and asked a question of the people in the crowd, who is aware of GreenShield Plus? And a good chunk of people put their hands up. And when I asked them, do you know, how do you feel about it? Most of them said, it's all the same. You know, all the insurance companies are doing the same thing. Well, that's not quite true, because what GreenShield's actually doing is utilizing technology to create a completely different user experience. And it's in the user experience that innovation that's been being driven over the last 5 years or so, with new platforms being built, etc., the convergence that they're creating through the user experience is an exponential driver of the power of the solution that is actually available. So I think it's really important that advisors get practical with these things, understand the implication to the use case for their clients. And if you're struggling with that yourselves, please, we're here. IDC Win is here. Workplace Solutions is here. We're working hard to navigate it. We're working hard to find ways to provide you with tools to have conversation with your customers, and to make a lot of what you're going to hear today from various stakeholders in the industry practical for delivery, for you to deliver into your workforce and use these things as a differentiator to market yourselves. After that, I'm out, and it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm excited to be moderating this panel today, because I think we've brought together four very well, plus David, five very interesting experts who together really represent IDC Win's holistic health approach, integrating the physical, the mental, and the financial health aspects in the benefit solutions that we strive to make available to employers and employees. So today we have with us, David's already mentioned, Joe, Executive Vice President and Head of Health Services and Enterprise Growth at Green Shield. We have Mark Avaria here as well, Executive Vice President responsible for the group division at Equitable Life Canada. We have Christine Niinanen, who is the Director of Operations at Acclaim Ability Management, where she leads employer services and also oversees the long-term disability and clinical services departments. And finally, we have Jonathan Weistub, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of Commonwealth Retirement, who is a financial technology company that provides retirement plans and also has a broader, I would say, social mission to make it possible for everyone to have a financially secure retirement. So I think this is a really interesting group of people to bring together. And so I'm going to go back to, where David was leading us, that we now have the potential to have a value proposition for employees and employers that is far richer than what we had definitely 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And of course, with this richness comes complexity. We'll talk more about that. But I just want to throw out a first question, and maybe I'll start with you, Mark. When let's put some definition around this value proposition that we have for employers and employees now. What should we be expecting today that to constitute a good benefits plan?
I think the first and foremost thing that I think about from an advisor's perspective is that setting the context for what they're actually up against in advising clients on today's benefit plans. The topic is how have things changed over the last 20, 30 years. I've been around that long, so I've actually had the opportunity to watch it up close and personal. And I think today, one of the challenges is that we have 5 generations of people working all at the same time. And they all have different interests. They all have different needs. Some think they're indestructible. Some are realizing that they are destructible and they need help. And somewhere in between all that, they have to get through all the troubles and things that they come up against in life, and they rely on their benefit plans. So there's been tremendous technology advancement over the last 20 years in group benefits, and there's still more to come. We've seen advancements in pharmacy, we've seen advancements in wellness and mental health, and you're probably going to hear a lot about that from Joe and from Christine. I think today the challenge for advisors is keeping up with all the available solutions that are now coming to the marketplace through technology, through knowledge of science and understanding what's going on with people in the workplace. So I think today, what defines a good benefit plan is choice, is solutions that actually meet the needs of specific clients. And it's getting harder because those personalized solutions are now moving to the member level. It used to be that we cared about the type of plan design that you created for an employer. Now it's moving to the member level, and what kind of plan design can you create for each individual employee within the benefit plan? So I see those as as kind of the context, the backdrop. I'm sure others are going to talk about that, so I'll stop there so that I don't monopolize this kind of juicy topic.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Or maybe I'll hop in. And so I think Mark's bang on in terms of choice, just given the sheer change in demographics in the workforce, the generational change in the workforce, the multiple generations working in the workforce today. What I would say, though, is you need to complement choice with integration and coordination. So we're giving folks a lot. It will confuse them if there isn't a certain level of integration and handholding through the various choices out there. And I think the folks that will ultimately win the day, there's an excellent article that Andreessen Horowitz, the VC firm out of the US, put out about the need for integrating insurance benefits along with health benefits and other benefits, including retirement, and putting them into a menu of sorts for individuals, but also hand-holding them and coordinating them to their benefits so that they find the one that's the best fit. As we continue to add more to benefit plans, if we don't do that, it's going to create some confusion for plan members, which will ultimately result in unhappy plan members.
Yeah, I would, agree with what Joe's saying. I think that, the choice needs to come with personalization and curation. And part of, I think, what's true is that we also often know now what's going to be helpful to people. We know around the evidence of what's going to work, to the extent that we can help guide those journeys, personalize those things, curate those things. I think that's to everyone's.
Yeah, I'm just I'm really happy to see that everyone's on the same page. I think that makes such a difference when people that can make an effect are on the same page, because what I just heard from everyone was that what do we expect in a good benefit plan? No, it's what do you expect as the consumer in a good benefit plan? So we're all listening with open minds to what might potentially be better. I often say to people, we're a simple human race. We repeat our errors. Pandemic is a good example of that, but many things are good examples of that. But we also try to be a little wiser as we move forward with that at the next stage. So what I was hearing too, and where we're thinking too, is we need to be a bit better. We need to encourage the adoption with the employers, especially the smaller groups. Like we need to say, here is everything that you have. Do you know what to do with that? And why is that a struggle? And in one of the later questions, I had some further thoughts on that, but Anne, I'll let you regroup and move forward.
No, I do think that's, I think that's and maybe this is the segue you're thinking of, Christine. You say we should be listening to clients and addressing their pain points. But how do we manage to how do we let clients know to surface these pain points to us? I think some of the innovation that we're seeing these days, clients don't understand that it's something that that could benefit themselves and their employers, because they're still thinking of it in a very maybe antiquated, siloed way. So how are we innovating, but also getting that innovation out into the world so that that people can kind of sit with it and understand how it can benefit them?
Yeah, I'd be happy to start that one for you, because that's exactly where we end up.
Right.
In disability management, in short-term disability management, we're often the end game of what didn't go right. So where someone is now off sick because something wasn't working. So there's lots of really great tools out there. But I think we need better ambassadors to encourage that adoption. I think Joe was saying the same thing. Like we still need this human component as a third-party provider, primarily in this market. We often find smaller employers. They struggle to understand how to advocate to their employees. And then when someone gets sick, they don't know what they're allowed to say or where they're allowed to step in, where it would be really helpful if all those tools, those resources, those great virtual apps and tools had an ambassador along the way that led them into it. And it doesn't need to be that they're all with one provider, and not to cut any business plans of anyone with larger portfolios here, but where we come in at the disability end of things is we end up being a navigator for whomever is offering the insurance of it, because we're going to say what is that you have available. And the biggest gap, I'll say the second thing we see, and then I'll move to the table, is that end game. So there's a lot of missing links in all the services provided and where the result is. We're always asking, and David has often heard me say, and Anne, you know, how did we get here? Like every time an employer tells me why we're in the situation, I say, well, how did you get here? Like, where did it all start? So sick leave is the final stage of the system that may have worked or didn't work. Like it got them to go get the help, or they didn't get the help up front. And as an example of this, great resources like virtual therapy and EAP. We're a strong user and advocate of the Inkblot program. I'm huge on that collaboration tool. We use it all the time, always pushing it because it's collaborative. But we're pushing it to our clients up front when we're doing implementation. We're saying, why are you waiting till someone gets sick to use this? But if that's there, the other problem that occurs is if you don't use those kind of resources that are there, and if there's no one on the broker side that's an ambassador for that and how it can work in there, then an employee doesn't know what a small employer what to do or how to do it, because nothing is linking that together. A doctor says you need therapy. You've been going to 6 to 8 weeks of EAP or virtual therapy, but the doctor doesn't get a report. So there's no connection there in the end. So those are the links that if these tools all work, they have to meet the end game on it. So that's where I think the innovation could move to in our field.
Maybe I can build on Christine's point, because like that you opened up a great opportunity for conversation here, Christine. And I want to thank David for being our de facto salesperson at CPPI and other events. He always does a wonderful job of advocating for our organization. I think there are three things that need to happen. I think to your point, Christine, one is communication. So it's making sure, or it's organizations like Green Shield and Equitable and others, we need to make sure that the plan sponsor has or is equipped with the talking points to go to their plan member and explain what's available to them in their benefit package. At the same time, it is on the employer to build out a strategy around some of these programs. So, one of the stats that I continue to bring up, it's been 5 years now, is that less than 40% of large employers, so I'm not talking about medium or small, but I imagine the number's even bigger, but less than 40% of large employers in Canada have a mental health strategy today, right? So how can you adequately promote EFAP or disability management program if you're not building a strategy and measuring ROI? So there's that part that's on the employer, working closely with the benefits provider. There is that end part that Christine talked about, making sure that reporting is focused, it's succinct, it's disciplined, it's looking at health outcomes. Do the programs actually have an ROI? And for those programs that don't have an ROI, there should be a willingness both from the employer and the provider to shed those programs or modify them. And then I go back to my earlier point, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with Green Shield Plus perhaps later in the conversation. But we want to be vertically integrated, meaning we do want to provide as many services as we possibly can now as a payer and provider. With that said, we also look to partner with organizations. The Claim is a great example of a partner that we've worked with through the Inkblot platform for years. We want to find partners that will fit in and integrate into our platform. And we want to build out, and we have built out, a common data framework that allows you to pass data along between different solutions, including from our health services line into our insurance line. So we can match the claims data and the claims trends with what's actually happening on the health side. So just to summarize it, there needs to be a role played by the employer in terms of promoting the services and building out a strategy around it. We as providers and as insurers need to help the employers do that. There needs to be a way to pull this together, including with partners, with a data framework that feeds into the reporting that ultimately allows people to see if the health outcomes are improving through some of these interventions.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions, but the thing that keeps sort of popping into my head here is, we're talking about the employers, we're talking about sponsorship. What's the role of the advisor in this?
I was just going to comment on that, actually.
Thanks, Mark.
I've had the pleasure over the years to work with some of the largest companies in Canada and in earlier life and the corporate accounts market. And all of these complexities that you're talking about, Christine, Joe, the things that you've spent a lot of time in building and developing, they're all really important in that corporate space because they have like a multitude of issues, lots of employees, big costs, et cetera, et cetera. But I've also had the pleasure of working in the small business space. And then that's a very different environment. That's where, you know, the employers are trying their darnest to get out of the eating crap dinner stage in the first 5 years of starting a business. They want to move on to attracting and retaining talent, but just to keep up in their own industry and to compete with a lot of competitive space that is coming at them in all areas and in all sectors of our economy is very hard. So you introduce a concept that complexities benefits, benefit plans, wellness, you know, prevention, you know, mental health and helping people get back to health and work, et cetera, and they just kind of glaze over on you. That's the employer, right? Trying to get advisors that have multiple clients that have these needs and they're all a little bit different to really take a deep dive on all these topics. It's even harder because they're busy people and they're trying to help. So I think the solutions that we offer to different sizes of employers, whether we like it or not, I'd love to be able to personalize things for everybody. But they do have to be packaged somewhat in a simple, easy way to use them for the smaller employers who don't have a lot of time, and for the advisors who work with them who also don't have a lot of time to get into the infinite details of that. So I think that's an area where I think I've seen a lot of industry participants, other carriers, build type solutions. We just built one, which I'll share a little bit about later, for that small space to try and make it simple, easy to use for the smaller space. And then we can get fancy as we go up market because there's lots of solutions and lots of ideas and lots of support to actually provide solutions that meet the needs of larger employers as well.
Yeah, and I would just build on that, Mark. You know, the supporting the advisor community in simplifying, particularly for the small and medium-sized business segment, is really important. I mean, it's both important for the advisor in supporting their clients, but it's also important for the clients themselves. And I think that both Joe and Christine were referring to that. I mean, we all, I guess, have been referring to that. As Mark, you know, was saying, the small and medium-sized business owner is concerned with their business first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Benefits are not often top of mind, but they do need to offer them often. And supporting them is actually a very, very important component in the service model. I mean, really for all of us in supporting, you know, the objectives of those employers. And the majority of Canadians, the vast majority of Canadians actually work in that small and medium-sized business segment. So how we do that as providers is critically important. And while personalization you think, you know, is possible, it's not actually really possible. You know, at that level, it has to be standardized to some extent, you know, across the piece and segmented in a way that resonates. But it is possible, I think, in my view, certainly in the segment that we're in, to standardize and kind of engineer experiences that are continuously improving based on feedback that resonate with clients and resonate with advisors.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, and the other thing that I've also learned over the years is that when we are defining small and large clients, when I talk to advisors and I ask them, what is a large client? They usually tell me, what's the largest client I have? So if that client happens to be, you know, 80 employees or 120 employees, to some of us, that might not be a very large client that have worked with large corporate accounts, but to the advisor, that is an important account. So you do sometimes have to pull out the whole bag of magic tricks to actually deal with that large client because they want that.
Well, I just wanted to say from our end, there's a reason that these four people, by the way, are on this panel. So as people know at IDC One Workplace Solutions, our mission is to humanize benefits. And I think all of this conversation leads to that. It's all about, you know, we can become so trapped in the technology, in the contract. And a lot of what Jonathan's saying as well is, you know, Jonathan had made the comment about at some level, you can't actually personalize. You have to, if you're building a group solution at some level, in order to scale, in order to provide a consistent experience, there has to be some limitation and edges to the whole experience. It can't be just all things to all people, because then it becomes nothing. So, but in leveraging all the technology that's coming together to create more opportunities for personalization, you need human beings in the process, at least at the moment, in order to make sense of it, to let people know that they're still human beings and they're not being left to 1-800 the abyss, or to ones and zeros that don't really have any empathy for them, etc. And all four of these organizations that are represented today have all demonstrated to us as a wholesaler, as an MGA distributor, this capacity to understand the human side of what they're doing, supporting advisors and clients in a very special way. And so it's to that point, from an advisor perspective, that I could say, I'm concerned that AI, for instance, will disintermediate and will disrupt the advisor market. I think the reality is that through technology, advisors are going to be disintermediated. They are going to be driven out of this business. You're going to have to find a way to provide real value, or the technology will do it for you. If all you're doing is assessing a plan design and a cost, AI can do that just quicker than you can, and probably better, because it can scan contract. Let me just, one sec, John. I just want to finish my point, and then it's all yours. So my question, the challenge back to the panel is, what tools can you build to provide advisors opportunities to access the information that they need in order to be more effective at that advisory level, where we are positioned to bring that differentiation at the individual level, where you guys are delivering at scale. We tend to be closer to the client and can deliver at that individual level. I'll leave it there. Joe, it's all yours.
My question, and I'll throw this at the rest of the panel, but I'll make my comment first. Like, disintermediation of advisors has been a topic for 20 plus years, right? Like, and the advisor workforce is largely adapted to it. I get it that AI and advances in technology are causing challenges, but at the same time, like for a Green Shield, and I suspect I'm not putting words in your mouth, Mark, about Equitable, we don't have the resources to go to every small or medium-sized business, right? Like, we need advisors to go open up the doors for us. Therefore, it's incumbent upon us, to your point, I think this is what you're getting at, David, to make it as easy for advisors to understand what our strategies are and what our products are as absolutely possible. So, we've tried with our individual business on the insurance side to improve our advisor portals as much as we possibly can. With our health business, we're doing an advisor roadshow on a regular basis, as opposed to just once a year, to make sure advisors understand what we're doing. But I really, when I started in this business, I thought maybe perhaps we'll see mass disintermediation. But now, the longer I've been at Green Shield for over 5 years now, like, we need advisors. I don't see us ever moving into a world where we can work without advisors, at least in the next 10 years or so. Like, there's no way we can distribute to small and medium-sized businesses without advisors playing an active role, representing us the way, for instance, David, you did at that CPPI conference, right? Like, we need advisors to do that. But I'd love to hear what the rest of the panel has to say.
I very much share, Joe, your perspective on advisors. I don't actually believe that they'll be disintermediated. I mean, the kind of artificial intelligence revolution, or even cloud computing and the kind of data revolution around some of the stuff, the promise to some extent, or people saying, oh, advisors are going to be disintermediated, it just hasn't happened. I actually don't believe that it will happen for the reasons that Joe is describing. I think that their advisors are very helpful in supporting businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, as advisors. I mean, meaning as they're counseling them, they're navigating a lot of the challenges that they have in figuring out, what to do with benefits packages, which providers to use, why to use those providers. And I think oftentimes advisors are also, to some extent, I call it business counselors to some owners, and they're embedded in their communities in ways that are not replicated by technology alone. And technology, and David, I think you started there in conversations we've had. Innovation is interesting insofar as it serves purpose, and the replacement of the kind of human connection is actually not a purpose the technology can serve.
Right.
And the advice that's provided by advisors, I don't think is easily replaced. It may never be replaced, but I don't see how it does get replaced.
I can I can give context to that actually by example. I was going to jump on Mark's point. The smaller groups, that's my market. That's what I do, is all the smaller ones. I don't have large clients. I loved whoever said, what's 80 people to you? Is that your large client or is that your small client, right? Like that's what matters. I was brought into a call about 2 years ago with a Canadian-based broker. They had a group that are out of Australia, but they have workers in the Canadian landscape in large industry. And they had, they were about to buy a bunch more here in Canada, and they had some situations where they wanted to add some creative solutions to their broker package for this group. This was a large group, but it was a solution that I'd been giving in the small groups forever, because an advisor will call and say, do you have a resource for my people? Because they don't have this in their benefit package. So can you help with a solution? So the solutions that we tend to move towards at Acclaim are people-centric. So we got on a call. They had a situation where they had an individual at a large site that had received an email about a wellness campaign. The wellness campaign came out from 2 female individuals. This person, not maybe being as tech savvy with the tool they were using, responded to this mass email back to about 900 people on a wellness tool that was now offering massages, an inappropriate comment out to 900 people that it was directed at 2 females. This is an HR issue at this point. But from this person, this advisor was thinking, how can we dovetail this in to help not just one, but many? And I said, well, I think what you need here in this example was more coaching services. So this 61-year-old individual in a very boots on the ground type industry ended up agreeing as part of his employment contract by that point to go into coaching about the situation that happened in the bullying harassment stage, more in the harassment. He came out of that a changed person at 61. He not only was given through the coaching services that I recommended that go through for an individual, he was given the 8 weeks of coaching. He made restitution with the 2 people. He received his job back, and he was able to coach, because he was a lead in his role, other people on how to do it. And that's at 61 years of age. And he didn't think he did anything wrong. He's got grandkids, he's got kids. He didn't think at first that what he'd done was wrong. It had nothing to do with the inappropriate use of a tool, a phone, that resulted in him receiving this. But the advisor, no matter the size of the group, was the only link to that solution, because otherwise it would have stayed siloed in an HR, and it wouldn't have affected all the benefits that they were talking about. But somebody was coaching, as Jonathan was saying, was listening and had an empathetic approach to how to hear what was needed in the by the individual. So I think that's a great resource. They implemented a whole bunch of tools for people afterwards, but at the level their group could utilize them better.
Yeah, to pick up on that, like we could spend a long time talking about AI, because that seems to be a big topic right now in the industry. I don't agree with you, David. I don't think AI can replace advisors. I think people now more than ever need advice. The AIs will make advisors smarter. It'll make them faster. It'll enable them to actually search for information much faster and be able to deliver more holistic value to the client when they're advising them on whatever topic it is, because that's what the AI is good at today. But they haven't yet figured out how to make it sensitive, how to give it a moral compass, how to consider the implications that are not necessarily out in cyberspace that the machine can learn from. In other words, it doesn't have a conscience. So advisors can present the needs of a client with that, whereas the AI cannot. Maybe in the future it will. We might even get to a situation where the AI does become self-aware, and I think they made enough movies about what happens right after that. But
Mark, you're saying it's the end at that point, so it doesn't matter.
yeah,
It's the end.
but for now, I do think that you need advisors. We need people that'll sit and listen to your needs and listen to, you know, how do I solve for this? Do other people have this problem? And how do they go about it? So I don't see advisors going away anytime soon. In fact, I see them becoming smarter and more capable.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with you.
Just,
Yeah.
sorry, you go ahead, Jonathan.
But I was just going to add that, you know, I mean, it's kind of interesting. There's consensus, you know, among the group for what that's worth on this topic, vis-a-vis advisors. And I do agree with Mark's comment that I do think AI and technology will make advisors more efficient, will make them better able to more efficiently serve for value clients and also, you know, individual members. I do think that there is that promise for sure with technology, but it doesn't replace that additional set of skills, the qualities that good advisors bring to support companies. Sorry, Anne.
And I think if we go back to, I mean, it ties together a few things that that have been said, and certainly, David, one of your taglines about unlocking value. I think we still are looking at advisors to unlock the value that exists within these products, so that employers understand and employees understand what they have available to them, but also unlocking the value between these products. So Jonathan, you're sitting there with a retirement program, and Mark and Joe, you've got the health and the mental health, and Christine, you're helping to navigate the HR aspects of it. But your systems don't speak to each other. And so it takes somebody, and back to David's point about, well, what data comes out of your systems that an advisor can use to then bring out the value in the other parts of it, of the whole that the employer has, but that is not just, you know, feeding onto their desktop every day. I think there's a huge advisor role in that, and that's where, you know, going back to the name of our session here, but that's what a smart advisor can do to set themselves apart and to really act as a consultant to their clients.
Yeah, I want to comment on that. That was great. Acclaim is working so in the mental health world, because that's what we talk about, and I have several thoughts on the mental health world, but in the building of how to connect the information, because we are, as I often like to say, we're the ones asking what the backstory was and how you get here. We've created our mental health ecosystem, which we think is a bit different than what's out there because of where our position is. Where our position is we want to use Joe, your group, Mark, your group, Jonathan, your group. But these groups don't usually talk. So this kind of conversation, what we're doing here today, is probably the most valuable for advisors, because they need to know what's going on everywhere from the understanding as a human. Our mental health ecosystem at Acclaim aims to head that way. I find it's gathering whomever the employer has as a provider. We need to understand that, and we're going to provide a person that navigates the individual that's now off on leave into whatever resources work best for that employer, so that they can utilize all of that, link them together so that somebody can come out on the end with a better end result. I mean, I can't wait for the last question when we get there, because I have a question for the folks here at the table that are so innovative. That's not my world. I have lots of thoughts on it, and I can't wait to ask questions, but I'll hold it till the end because I want to see where we're going in this world, and these folks know where that is.
Maybe I can hop in and talk a little bit about GreenShield's journey. So, you know, I when I was on David's podcast a couple of years ago, I said, and it was 3 years was the time frame. Now it's 5 years. If you looked at GreenShield 5 years ago, it was a company solely focused on health and dental benefits and administration, right? And we were dealing with some pressures and headwinds based on that model, and made the determination that we were going to follow the path of a number of US and European providers and truly try to become a payer provider. So we'd have our insurance arm, we'd have our administration arm, but we'd build out a health services arm. And by doing it, it would allow for a broader suite of services to make available to the industry, to advisors, to employers, but it would also allow us to better integrate the user experience across multiple facets of our business. So in terms of, there are limitations to this model. If somebody is using Equitable for their life insurance and using us for their health and dental, for the most part, it would have to be my team and Mark's team talking behind the scenes in some instances. But in terms of what we can control within our ecosystem, the way we built our platform, GreenShield Plus, it has asked our vendors to adapt to our system. So they actually integrate into the system. The data feeds into the system. I'll use an example of this. GreenShield Telemedicine is powered by Maple. This is not simply, when you go onto our platform, it's not simply a cut over to the Maple app. You stay on our platform to use Maple. Maple's given us their clinical network. They've plugged it into the platform, but it is our user experience, and it's all in the same data framework, which means a clinician on the mental health part of our platform can hand somebody off to the physician, who can then hand somebody off to the pharmacist, who can also submit a claim through GreenShield's insurance arm. And all that data is pooled together using our Google platform that underpins the system. So we're able to produce highly detailed outcome reports. Like we actually, and on top of that, we're talking about AI. We can leverage AI and are already leveraging AI to improve your choice of the clinician or physician or health professional you want to use. It informs our care coordinators, so some of the individuals that are working with people going through the program. It also helps provide next best actions for the individual plan member or patient, depending on where they're at. So that's an interesting use of technology in the sense that if there's a key trend in terms of how you're leveraging the platform and it's clear, you might need to go talk to a pharmacist, or you may need to go into our ICBT solution or to use a claims disability management solution, it will nudge you in that direction. So by having that level of vertical integration while working with partners on the platform, it's allowing us to get a level of detail that we certainly didn't have in years past, that allows for a more patient-centric journey throughout the platform and allows us to produce more detailed outcome reports.
And I think that's very interesting. The vertical integration really does take out some of the complication of piecing those things together. But let's talk about when the advisor is playing a role of, or even piecing the GreenShield solution with, say, a Commonwealth solution. What data, what is available to that you wish the advisors would look at, before they go into meetings with their clients? What do you wish they would be, taking from your systems? And I think, Joe, that this goes back to your comment as well about, as we're asking people to adopt new solutions, you also have to be prepared to get rid of the ones that aren't doing anything for you. And an advisor has a role, obviously, in there too. So, out to the four of you, what do you wish advisors were paying attention to before they went in to talk to their clients about their experience on the various products that you sell?
I think the wish list for us is equipping advisors with data that they can actually use to have the conversation. Historically, we've looked at the data and said, the data looks like you need to make adjustments to the rating, to the plan, based on your experience, your utilization, what's happening with inflation in the marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think we fully equipped advisors to have the plan design kind of review, like in the Commonwealth space with Jonathan. If you're looking at your savings and you're looking at your retirement plan, you usually recalibrate on an ongoing basis with your advisor, right? And that requires you to go in and have a look at what's happening. In the benefits world, that is not always the case, right? So what we want to do is use data to liberate that ability for the advisor to sit down with the client and say, okay, let's look at what happened last year. Let's look at who used the plan, how they used it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we do have some privacy things that we can't step over. We do have to manage that. But certainly giving them the opportunity to have a data-based conversation on the topics of, is my plan design appropriate moving forward? What new things are being introduced? I don't have really a focus on D&I in my plan right now. I need to shift my plan a little bit because there is a budget associated with all this stuff. I can't cover everything.
Yeah.
So how do I actually stretch my dollars, recreate the model that I thought I was going to go forward with, because now there's new needs, there's new pharmaceuticals, there's new interest in the workplace. You know, we all had the Ozempic era last year, and that taught us that weight loss potentially will become an issue for most employers moving forward. How do I recalibrate that plan? So what we're trying to do is use data ourselves to understand what's happening, and at the same time find ways to share that with the advisor so that when they are sitting with their client reviewing the case, they can actually not just talk about pricing, but they can talk about what are the go forward solutions that I need.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Mark, that you're making around, what is the data that advisors most want to get access to, and that can change to some extent depending on client needs and circumstance. I'd say in our space, the kind of engagement levels of employees, how well they're doing around participation, how much they are consolidating assets onto the program, that sort of goes to how valuable the employees perceive the benefit to be, which is part of often what employers are solving for. The question of what data gets accessed is not static, and it's not something. I mean, when we think about it, we always want to be in dialogue with our advisor partners about what is actually most valuable to you, and what is most valuable to you by way of actually supporting your clients and those members in a way that brings an outcome that resonates fundamentally with your clients who are business owners. The other thing which I think is kind of interesting just to recognize is, and Joe went there, sounds like Greenshield has done a fantastic job of thinking about data, organizing data, and building effectively an integrated data model. That I do think that providers do need to pay attention to the age of their back-end infrastructure data models. And I think we have a lot of players in the Canadian market that have very old back-end infrastructure, which at the end of the day is actually going to be a very significant impediment to the use of data in a way that's efficient, or even to leveraging artificial intelligence at all. If the age of your infrastructure is 30 or 40 years old, the idea that you're going to leverage artificial intelligence is not really a thing for anyone who knows anything about artificial intelligence.
Maybe I can, that's a great point, Jonathan, and I won't speak to any providers in our space, but just look at the challenges the federal government's having with their benefits delivery modernization program, right?
Yeah.
Those are 40 to 50 year technology platforms, and it will take potentially 15 years just to get them updated. So the longer organizations let these programs collect dust, or let these platforms collect dust, the more challenging it's going to be to turn them around. And I agree, you won't be able to pull the data from them that you want to ultimately deploy programs or solutions like that.
Right. I wouldn't say, Joe, that people can't use bits and pieces of artificial intelligence, but when you think about infrastructure that's 30 or 40 years old, it's not benefiting. And I think you mentioned that your platform is on Google, so there's kind of cloud infrastructure that you're using, which is a condition precedent to even starting to leverage artificial intelligence, and having an integrated data model around that is also a question that I think advisors should be asking of providers, which is how old is your infrastructure, your backend infrastructure, because that will determine the pace of innovation on a go-forward basis.
Yeah, I also think there's another element to it that doesn't get me. I'm actually working through that very thing that you're talking about, Jonathan, which is, our technology is pretty good. Just we only have one system.
Yeah.
Right? Not all providers just have one system. Like if you
that is
have,
true, Mark. We're not going to name
multitude
names.
of systems, like the problem just amplifies, right? So.
That's right.
But we're working through that. But one of the things that is fundamental to that exercise is it's not just the technology and the age of the technology. It's more about how you store the data, right? Yeah. Is the data stored in such a way that is accessible and protected and depersonalized so that you can share some of that information with an advisor, for example? So it's the data structure that we're spending a lot of time on, as well as actually, creating the next version of our technology moving forward.
So I have one more question and I think this is the one that Christine's been waiting for. So is there a way that we as a, you know, as a group of industry players can or should be working together to create better outcomes for our clients through innovation? Like what can, because I mean, I'm listening to you guys and I'm thinking, and I come from, you know, a big company benefits consulting background where I have you guys all around the table talking to my client, but not every advisor, you know, has that that opportunity. So how do we work as disparate players in this industry to create better outcomes together for our clients?
Yeah, I'd love
Actually,
to start. Go
Go ahead,
somebody.
Christine, since this was your question, so you
Yeah.
can start now.
Well,
Chime in later.
Joe and Mark, you might just tell me that's already done. So I'm just waiting to hear if the two of you respond. Joe, you were almost there. So I envision a world where, and this is my own struggle as a user of benefits. Okay. So I'm on the inside. I'm like those guys at Airbnb that decided to go to New York and stay at their own place to see what the pain points were about their program when they did it. So I envision a world where I put in a receipt to my benefit provider. Love that. Nice and easy. It's all online. I would love, instead of just live chat, how can I help you pop up? I would love to see something where it literally says, hey, I see that's your third receipt for physio. Let me point you in the direction of some of the resources your own employer has to help you in the front end of this so that you don't get here next year, like whatever the message is. But I'm like, I keep searching Google for the solution and seeking the assistance of the recovery. And I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be great if this could do it that way? So these kind of discussions. So David, I wanted to thank you for this opportunity because this provides, we're at the end game, as I always say to you, we're at the end of a long struggle. Somebody's on sick leave. They're either going to get really quickly introduced to their benefit package because that's the only time they care is when they're sick. Like that's the only time they need it for most of their benefits, or they're never going to know and they're just going to be frustrated by it. So that's my envision. Am I out of the loop and need to go back to Google to say it's already done?
We'll be there. We'll be there in Q4. So the next best action program I mentioned, as well as we're building out a care coordinator network. Both are launching in November, December. If it bleeds into next year, early Q1. But we'll have a program in place to do exactly what you're suggesting.
Impressive.
Maybe I can just jump on your broader question there, Anne. Like my background, and David knows this, like I didn't start in the benefits industry. I started actually in public policy and spent 6 years with the Business Association. And what tends to happen in the industry when there's an opportunity to collaborate is the bigger players tend to dominate the conversation. And I would argue that happens in our space as well. I see Mark kind of smirking there, but the three biggest players do tend to dominate at least the public policy discussion around how our industry positions itself. I think there's a very unique opportunity that is sitting there right in front of us for some of the larger, but not the biggest players to come together and talk about certain best practices, agree to some common frameworks around how we present outcomes or data, and trade some secrets without going into anti-competitive behavior, if you know what I mean. Like, I think there's
nicely said.
For us to come together. I'll use an example of a public policy issue where I'd love to see a group come together is the federal government's move to minimize the ability of Canadians to use telemedicine. Like that's it. Just given the doctor shortage that we deal with right now, like it makes absolutely no sense. And I feel like our industry can't come together right now to properly position ourselves against that public policy decision. So there's so much low hanging fruit. It's a matter of the group coming together, putting some of our competitive differences aside and having a regular conversation and coming to landing on some areas where we could potentially work together.
Yeah.
I would add to that,
Well, I hear lunch coming up.
I would add to that, based on your earlier points, Christine, the reality, and we're working on a very similar release at Equitable. We're trying to personalize what you experience as a member when you actually use our technology, for example. And there's really simple examples that we use to kind of capture what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it effortless. So it's the effortless experience that we're going for with the members that use our technology in our benefit plans. And when you call in or try to use technology from a carrier, first of all, it's intimidating. There's a lot of information on there. So we're trying to narrow in on who is calling. For example, right now, one of the big topics that I think most carriers are working on is women's health. Right. And looking at that, there's specific things that we need to focus on to do better at. But if you're a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old member of a benefit plan, you're a guy, okay, and you're logging in to see what coverage you have for whatever it is that you need, right? Popping up kind of like, hey, let's make you aware about menopause, or let's make you aware about, those kinds of things. Sure, it's educational, but that's not what they actually logged in to look for. They were looking for something more personal. So we're trying to align how we interact, the experience that they have with the members. So that's the technology that we're working on to create that kind of targeted approach. To the other point about sharing and working together, one area that's most prevalent right now with carriers is we're pooling data together on an anonymized way, so that it's not the privacy is protected. But we're pooling data to actually look for opportunities to prevent and address fraud in benefit plans.
Yeah.
Carriers are actually participating in a large-scale initiative where we can use technology that's available today, like AI, that can search much faster than we could ever search on our own, a large pool of information about claims and providers, et cetera, that allow us to pinpoint how a provider might be actually misusing or submitting claims that shouldn't be submitted across multiple carriers. It's an industry initiative. It's an industry collaboration. It's actually proven to be quite effective because larger data allows
cost saving. Yeah.
It protects the client.
So I could listen to this actually for a lot longer, but I am gonna have to unfortunately start to wrap it up. And so I just, we're talking about a lot of things that are being done much differently than they were, 5-10 years ago. We're talking about so much potential for things to be done in a coordinated way that really is going to make the most out of these benefits for employers and employees. But this is I think difficult for advisors to be wrapping their heads around all these options that are available and being able to speak eloquently to them, to their employee, or sorry, their customers. But as we discussed earlier, this is the advisor job. This is where the advisor is really bringing the benefit to their clients. So I think at this point, I just want to send it over to David for some concluding remarks about practical advisor takeaways from this session. As an advisor, where do I go with this?
So thank you, Anne, and thank you, everybody. By the way, I appreciate the feedback from, I think, pretty much everyone on the panel, redressing me and correcting me on the disintermediation of advisors. It's the wrong word to have used, actually. What I do mean is that I still believe that and I don't want it limited to AI. I think there's a tsunami of technology, and it's not just new platforms coming about, but just even the utility of user experience as a science and an art that is coming, that will create a need for hyper specialization. And I don't think that the entire advisor market as we know it is built to be able to absorb that level of market intelligence. If you're a generalist, you certainly will not have the capacity to develop the skill set, the understanding, the knowledge that is going to be required to provide effective consulting and support to your clients. Because to the point of the panel, the advisor is not going away. It's the specialization of the advisor that's going to be escalated. The demand for specialization by advisors that's going to be escalated. And if you're not up to that task, I believe you will be put out of this business, or you will need to find partnerships to work with. I mean, that's a over-the-top probably sales pitch for IDC Win Workplace Solutions as an MGA and our capacity to support you, and the effort that we put into being there to support advisors in that world. I will say that we really, this panel, at least from my perspective, and I think you have, a couple of people have texted me here, that this panel way exceeded our expectations of what this dialogue might look like. And it's really, really exciting to be party to, as Anne said, sitting in as a voyeur, listening to this conversation between 4 different stakeholders that are highly intentional about this aspect of the business. I would love, by the way, to challenge the 4 of you to finding maybe an hour a quarter where we could just gather together as a group to continue this kind of brainstorming, which I think is really fun. But I do have a question, and I don't think we've got enough time for it, so I'm going to answer it myself. The question that I had was, what is the one skill that an advisor should focus on developing? What is the muscle that we need to develop? And I would say it's the capacity to be a navigator. Our need to navigate on behalf of a customer, to access the data from the carriers that as they provide it to us, the providers, etc., to access the data, know how to use that data, know how to help our clients find signals in the noise and provide solutions, is the key muscle that we need to develop as advisors. I think we have the challenge before us. It is hard work. Be brave. It's a new world, and it's really, really exciting. We are very, we're going to close this one off. Thank you so much, Christine, Mark, Jonathan, Joe, so much appreciated. And it's fitting that we're now going to have Kartik Saktival from LIMRA, who's their Chief Technology Officer, I believe, talking specifically about AI in our world and how it's going to be impacting. But thank you so much to this panel. It was outstanding.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thanks, Anne.
Thanks for navigating, Anne.